Have you ever wondered how you would cope if you lost your spouse? It's a thought that many of us shy away from because it's just too painful to consider. After spending decades together, sharing dreams, building a family, and growing old side by side, losing your partner feels like losing a part of yourself. The home you built together now feels empty, and daily routines that once brought comfort turn into painful reminders of what's missing. But what if I told you that it's possible to rebuild a joyful and meaningful life, even after such a profound loss? It's not about forgetting or moving on. It's about finding a new way to honor their memory while rediscovering your own purpose and happiness. In this video, we'll uncover 3 key secrets to not just surviving, but truly thriving after the loss of a spouse. These insights are based on real-life stories of older adults who found strength and a renewed sense of purpose, despite the pain. By actively engaging with the grief, pursuing meaningful activities, and maintaining a sense of independence, they transformed what seemed like an ending into a new beginning. So, if you or someone you know is struggling to navigate life after such a loss, this video is for you. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, Zen Teachings Daily, where we share more inspiring stories, practical advice, and uplifting content aimed at helping you live your best life at every stage. Let's get started with the first secret: actively accepting the pain and allowing yourself to heal. This is the foundation that will guide you through the rest of the journey. Secret 1. Actively accepting the pain. After losing a spouse, it's normal to feel like the world has stopped while everything around you keeps moving. The sudden absence of the person who has been your closest companion for decades can leave you feeling lost and overwhelmed. Many people experience a sense of being trapped in a fog, unable to see a way forward. There are moments of intense sadness and sometimes even anger or guilt. Thoughts like, "If only I had done this differently," or "I should have been more attentive," often circle in the mind, making the pain even harder to bear. For many, the initial reaction is to shut down, to avoid anything that reminds them of their spouse. Some people close themselves off at home, surrounded by old photos and memories, while others try to ignore the grief altogether by filling their days with activities. But no matter how hard we try to escape, grief has a way of catching up. It's like a shadow, no matter where you go, it follows. So, how do you move forward? It starts with acknowledging the pain and letting yourself truly feel it. This is not about giving up or accepting that you'll be sad forever. It's about giving yourself permission to grieve without judging yourself for it. And that's what Mrs. Margaret learned when she lost her husband of 50 years. Let me tell you about her story. For months after her husband passed away, Mrs. Margaret found herself withdrawing from everything. Every corner of the house reminded her of him, the armchair where he sat, the garden they planted together, the music they used to play. It became unbearable, so she locked herself away, avoiding her children, friends, and even neighbours who tried to reach out. "I didn't want to see anyone," she recalls. "I felt like no one could understand my pain." But one day, her daughter came over, unannounced, and found her mother sitting alone staring at old photo albums. Margaret broke down and admitted how much she missed her husband, how lost she felt without him. Instead of comforting words, her daughter looked into her eyes and said, "Mom, I miss him too, but I need you. You're still here, and I don't want to lose you too." That simple statement struck a chord in Margaret's heart. It made her realize that while her pain was valid, she needed to find a way to live again, not just for herself, but for those who still loved her. From that day forward, Margaret began to take small steps. She didn't suddenly become happy, nor did she feel a sense of closure. Instead, she started with small actions. She began by sitting in their garden again, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. Then she joined a local seniors book club, something she and her husband had always talked about but never got around to doing. Slowly, Margaret found a new rhythm to her days. She realized that accepting the pain didn't mean letting go of her husband's memory. It meant carrying him with her, but in a way that allowed her to keep living fully. She says, "I still feel sad sometimes, but now I look at our old photos and I smile. Because instead of thinking about what I've lost, I think about what we shared. And that shift, seeing my grief as a sign of how deeply we loved, made all the difference. So if you're in this situation, know that there's no right or wrong way to grieve, but try to open yourself up, little by little. Let yourself feel the pain, and don't rush through it. Connect with others who understand what you're going through, and most importantly, allow yourself to remember the happy times, not as a source of sadness, but as a testament to the love you shared. Now that we've laid the foundation of acceptance, let's move on to the next secret: finding meaningful activities to rebuild your sense of purpose. Secret 2: finding meaningful activities. When your spouse passes away, many of the routines and activities that filled your days suddenly seem meaningless. What used to be enjoyable, cooking dinner together, planning trips, or even simple conversations over a cup of tea, now feels empty. The absence of purpose can make the days feel unbearably long. But here's the good news: engaging in new activities, ones that challenge your mind and engage your heart, can help fill that void and give you a renewed sense of direction. Let me share with you the story of Mr. James, a retired engineer who lost his wife of 40 years. They had spent their entire lives planning for retirement together, dreaming about the places they would visit and the hobbies they would take up. But when his wife passed away after a long illness, James found himself adrift. Every plan they had made now seemed pointless, and every day felt like an endless stretch of nothingness. One day, an old friend reached out and invited him to join a woodworking class. At first, Mr. James didn't see the point. "Why should I bother?" he asked himself. "She's not here to see what I make." But his friend gently encouraged him, saying, "Just come once. You don't have to stay if you don't like it." With reluctance, Mr. James agreed. On his first day, he sat quietly at the back, unsure of what to expect. The smell of freshly cut wood and the sight of people carving and sanding their projects felt strangely comforting. He watched as the instructor handed him a piece of raw wood and showed him how to carve simple patterns. As the chisel moved across the surface, Mr. James found himself becoming absorbed in the activity. The repetitive motion of shaping the wood gave him a sense of focus he hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Mr. James started to attend regularly. He began with simple projects, small boxes and basic carvings. Each time he finished a piece, he felt a flicker of pride, a small spark that told him he was creating something again. The act of turning a rough piece of wood into something beautiful began to transform his outlook on life. Gradually, woodworking became more than just a hobby. It became a symbol of his own journey to reshape his life after loss. As he gained confidence, he moved on to more complex designs. One day, he decided to make a rocking chair, a project he and his wife had always planned to build together. It took him weeks, but with every piece he carefully sanded and assembled, he felt closer to her. When it was finally done, he sat in that chair, alone but not lonely. The chair stood as a testament to his resilience, a reminder that even in the face of loss, new things could still be created. Today, Mr. James not only creates beautiful wooden pieces, but also volunteers at the community centre, teaching others how to work with wood. "It's not just about making something," he shared. "It's about building a life again, piece by piece." This story shows how important it is to find new activities that bring a sense of purpose. After a significant loss, many of the routines that once shaped our lives disappear. That's why it's crucial to find something that engages your mind and your heart. Whether it's a creative project, volunteering, or learning a new skill, these activities can help fill the empty spaces and give you something to look forward to each day. If you're in a similar place, Start by thinking about the things that used to bring you joy, even if they seem insignificant now. It could be gardening, painting, cooking, or even something completely new. The key is to start small. Don't expect to feel instantly better. Allow yourself to explore and be open to trying new things without the pressure of having to succeed. The goal isn't perfection, it's simply to engage your heart and mind in a meaningful way. For Mr. James, the process of carving wood became a metaphor for his own healing. Each cut, each curve, and each smooth surface represented his journey of slowly rebuilding himself. You too can find something that speaks to your spirit and helps you move forward. Engaging in meaningful activities is a crucial step in finding joy again. But while it's essential to build a new sense of purpose, maintaining your independence is just as important. This brings us to the third and final secret. Secret 3. Maintaining independence. Independence is often misunderstood. Many think of it as living alone or managing everything by oneself. But true independence is about maintaining a sense of self and purpose, regardless of your living situation. For those who have lost a spouse, the temptation is often to lean too heavily on children or relatives, seeking to fill the void left behind. While family support is important, maintaining personal independence is essential for long-term happiness and dignity. The story of Mrs. Linda illustrates this perfectly. Mrs. Linda, 68, moved in with her daughter and son-in-law after her husband's death. At first, it seemed like the right decision. Her daughter wanted to make sure she wasn't alone, and Mrs. Linda was grateful for the company. She helped around the house, took care of her grandchildren, and thought she was finding a new role for herself. But as time passed, Linda began to feel increasingly isolated and conflicted. Her daughter and son-in-law were busy with their own lives, and Linda realized she was losing her sense of self. She spent her days catering to their needs, cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the children. Yet deep down she felt invisible. She missed having her own space, her own routine, and her own sense of purpose. One day, after a particularly tense conversation with her daughter, Linda decided it was time to reclaim her life. "I felt like I was losing myself," she admitted. "I didn't want to be a burden, but I didn't want to disappear either." With courage and determination, Linda made a bold decision. She moved into a small apartment nearby. It wasn't easy. She worried that her daughter might see it as a rejection, but Linda knew it was something she had to do. At first, living alone again felt daunting. The quietness of her own place made her feel lonely, and she wondered if she had made a mistake. But over time, she began to rediscover herself. She started taking dance classes, something she had loved as a young woman. She joined a senior walking group and reconnected with old friends. Slowly, Linda found herself becoming busy again. But this time, it was on her own terms. "I love my family," she explained, "but I needed to feel like myself again. Living on my own terms has given me a new lease on life. Now I spend time with my daughter and grandchildren when I want to, but I also have my own schedule, my own activities, and my own life." Linda's story highlights an important truth. Independence doesn't mean isolation. It means having the freedom to make your own choices, to pursue your own interests, and to live in a way that feels true to who you are. It's about maintaining your dignity and self-respect, even as you navigate the challenges of growing older. If you find yourself relying too much on family, or feeling like your sense of identity is slipping away, take a step back and consider what you need to feel whole again. Is it time alone to reflect and reconnect with yourself? Is it a new activity that excites you? Or is it simply having a space that is truly yours? Whatever it is, don't be afraid to prioritize your own well-being. Maintaining your independence is not selfish, it's essential. Remember, independence is not about cutting ties with loved ones. It's about finding a balance that allows you to contribute to the family while also nurturing your own needs and desires. By staying active, pursuing your interests, and keeping a sense of purpose, you can build a life that is rich, fulfilling, and uniquely yours. Looking forward. The pain of losing a spouse is indescribable, and the path to healing is different for everyone. But these 3 secrets, actively accepting the pain, finding meaningful activities, and maintaining independence, offer a roadmap to not just survive but thrive in the years that follow. Life after loss doesn't have to be empty. With the right mindset and actions, it can be a time of personal growth, new beginnings, and renewed purpose. So, whether you are just beginning this journey or have been walking it for some time, remember that it's okay to feel pain, to seek new sources of joy, and to protect your independence. You are not alone. Others have walked this path and found light at the end of the tunnel, and so can you. Thank you for watching, and if you found this content helpful, please consider subscribing to Zen Teachings Daily. Let's continue to support each other in living fully, no matter what life brings.